Today I'm going to show you how to make this handbag strap. This one I made out of muslin just for the purpose of this video. But this is a turned handbag strap. It's not one like I showed in my handbag video where you fold it over and sew it. This is much neater, you can see. So what you're going to need is some twine, a wooden dowel, tailor pins, scissors, a pattern. This just happens to be the one I made for my granddaughters. I'm going to make, I forgot to put the R in toddler. A toddle pillowcase dress is the strap pattern for that, and I just used it for this video. You need some fabric, some fusible interfacing, and in case you ask, the fusible interfacing that I'm using today is the Pelon 809 Decor Bond Firm Iron-On Backing with Extra Crispness. It's really good for this kind of project. So, and that what that is this has a, can you see the shiny side? Has a shiny side and it has a matte side. The shiny side is what irons onto the fabric, onto the wrong side of the fabric. And okay, so anyway, here goes. I hope the light's good in here. The first thing you're going to need is your main fabric, which you can do in one piece because we're going to do a fold over, and I'm going to show you why. It's up to you how long. This may be a little off, but this is just for this video purpose. It depends on how thick you want the purse handle to be after it's finished. So that all that's up to you. This is probably what I've got here is about 4 or 5 inches, and like I said, it's a little off. But it's just to I'm just showing you how to do this. Now you're going to take your fusible interfacing. It's iron on the iron-on backing, and I always get a scrap layer of cloth. I'm going to iron this on starting here. So I'm just going to keep moving this down because I don't have any space here. If you okay, so next step. This is medium weight jute twine, I guess. Don't know what you call it. You're going to want it to be at least 1.5 times longer than your piece of fabric. So I'm going to cut that here. I want to tie a little knot in it. It doesn't have to be a great big knot. But then you want to take your fabric and fold it in half. And you want to make sure that that twine stays in there. And you don't want to iron because you're going to turn this out, so don't iron. But then you need to keep this in place, so you just place some pins to keep it down. I used much thinner straps when I made my handbags. After I made the video and I started selling handbags, I worked with a thinner strap. When I learned this method, sometimes it'll take a little bit of practice, and it takes a whole lot of patience. Okay. Now, once you've got your pins in here, you want to pin it on this side where the sharp part of the pin is facing the fold, because that's actually the side you want to start sewing on. And I've got, you can see here, quite a bit, maybe over 12 inches of the twine, and you really do need about that much. I would like this to have been the thicker twine that I had, but I couldn't find it. And this natural stuff is the best. It's strongest, but this thin stuff is really kind of difficult to work with. So I've got this pinned down. Start sewing on this part. I'm going to sew across here and then go down here. And you want to just make sure that your twine stays out away from where you're going to sew. You don't want to sew over that twine or you ruin the whole thing. That's what I did. And back stitch. I want that to stay in there good. And then I'm going to think it says 6/8 on that line right there. I don't know if that's how far over it is, but that's where I'm going to start. And you want to have this extra, lots of extra of this, because more is better in this case. And you want to pull out the pins as you go along. Okay. Now, make sure to back stitch so that this seam doesn't come loose here. Now what you want to do is start with your with your hands, and you want to start kind of turning this inside out. Just get it turned enough that you can put it on your wooden dowel. And then you're going to start kind of scooching it down your wooden dowel. This, the more narrow your purse handle you want it to be, the more you're going to really want this string. And you just kind of go back and forth from using your fingers to get that in there and pulling that out to the wooden dowel, and then you can give the string a little pull. The string is really to get that end through there once you get closer to the end. You want to do this with patience, very slowly, because you don't want to tear your interfacing and you don't want to rip through your cloth. Now, I've seen some crafters will put maybe a piece of fabric or something on the end of this. You can do that if it makes you more comfortable, but for me it just causes more problems. This is why, if you ever have a question about why handmade handbags are so expensive, it takes a lot of work. The prettier you want them to be, the more neat you want them to look, the more work goes into it. So you see, we come to a certain point where we've got all of the fabric turned out, but we still have to get this worked through, and it can be really tight, especially if you're going to make a really narrow handbag strap. But it gets easier. You get to that point where you can feel it just kind of working itself through when you work your fingers in there. And then you give it a little pull. And at this point you really don't want to mess with the wooden dowel. You want to leave that out of this. And just let the string and your fingers do all the work. When you feel it pull tight, you don't want to pull on that twine unless you want to lose it. And that would make you angry. You see what I'm doing here? I hope you can see it. I'm just working, I'll just take my fingers and work all the way around that to get it loosened up a little bit more, and then give it another pull. And then I will do the same thing again until eventually you are at the end. Yay! And then what you do is take your wooden dowel and stick it down in here, and you want to straighten up that corner. As much as you can. And then all you have to do is, we're going to get rid of that excess. We don't need it. So you know, depending on how long you want your handbag, you want to make it a couple inches longer than that, because you're going to need to cut that to get that string, that twine out of there. And then what I like to do to make it look all neat and pretty on the top side I will lay it out to where this is where the seam was is on the bottom, and this will be the top side of the purse handle. And so then your last step before you sew it onto the handbag would be to iron it. And see, the reason for the large seam allowance that I put in this one would be to keep that nice and flat. If you had a really thin seam allowance, it would kind of poke up, but with it being a little bit wider, you can iron it down, and it also gives the handbag strap extra strength. You just keep ironing it till you got nice and purty. There you go, handbag strap, and this one would be, I guess it's about 18 to 20 inches. Nice for a regular handbag.